Okay, for this demo, we're going to walk through Unchain, one of our partner services. So Unchain is a blockchain gateway offering a very logical REST API that dramatically simplifies integration of your existing applications and business processes to an Ethereum blockchain. It's very similar to one of our native services, ETHConnect, that actually abstracts the Ethereum API, allowing you to send really lightweight REST calls modeled as JSON and YAML payloads. And then this shim layer, Unchain, ETHConnect, will actually handle all of the Ethereum complexities, compilation, RLP encoding, etc. So let's take a look at how it works on Kaleido. What I have here is a very lightweight environment running Horman Raft, single node deployed, and an HD wallet instance also active. So using the drop-down, I'm going to go ahead and add an Unchain instance. So we can apply a name to it, or we can use the auto-generated default name. So we'll click Connect, and this will provision us an Unchain instance. We see that the Unchain service, just like any native Kaleido services or third-party services, are secured by application credentials. So you're going to want to copy these down, save them in order to sort of get back into this current instance of Unchain. So I'll copy those and throw those on a notepad. Okay, so there's ample documentation explaining how to actually provision the Unchain service in AWS, how to configure it and deploy the adapter. That's already done, so all we need from the Kaleido side is actually the URL representing that running instance in an EC2 container. So I have that URL right here. I'll go ahead and paste that into my Kaleido service and click Next. Okay, now for Unchain to work, it's going to need some specific pieces of information about our Kaleido environment. Specifically, it needs a fully qualified node endpoint to communicate with. So I'm going to copy this node endpoint right here, and then we can start configuring the actual Unchain service in AWS. Okay, so we have this endpoint copied, and now we can update and edit our configuration of the Ethereum adapter in our Unchain instance. So we can paste our node endpoint, save and continue, and now we need to provide some signing account details. So we need the private signing key and the corresponding Ethereum account address. I'm going to go ahead and use the HD wallet instance to ascertain this information. So if we go back to our environment dashboard, we can open our HD wallet, we can log in, we can view our wallet dashboard, and we can go and fetch one of the indices. So I'll just go with the first one, and we can see that I have the private key down here. So we can copy the private key, and we see the address is 4FF21. Just keep that in mind. So we can paste our private key, and then we can generate the corresponding wallet address. So we see 4FF21. Save and continue. And now the last thing we need to do is we actually need to upload some Solidity source code for the Ethereum adapter to use. This is the actual smart contract that's going to be deployed, and then an ABI will be used for this Unchain instance to encode and decode to that machine code or the byte code, how the contract is represented on an Ethereum network. So we can browse. I can go to a local instance, local folder, and we'll use the very basic simple storage smart contract. So we can upload this. You see it right here, simple storage Solidity. And simple storage is probably the most basic of all the really elementary smart contracts out in the wild. It uses a global variable called stored data that's represented with an unsigned integer, and it provides two methods. You can do a get and you can do a set on that global variable. So very basic. And then we see our ABI, our application binary interface. This is what Unchain is ultimately going to leverage to talk to the blockchain. So we have all this good stuff, and we can go ahead and submit that transaction to the blockchain, right? So this is the deployment or the instantiation of the simple storage smart contract. So this has been instantiated. So if we go back to our environment here, get out of the HD wallet instance, we see that we have a single block. representing the deployment of that simple storage smart contract. Great. So now we can go back to Unchained. We can progress with our configuration, and we see the last step is the optional ability to generate an API key. So if you use this API key, this is going to securely authenticate you to the Unchained instance, this EC2 instance. So you would toss this into a header authorization, and this will allow you to do very basic curl calls, right? Using the EC2 instance as your endpoint and providing something in the body, the method and the value that you want to use to interact with that smart contract. So we can save all of this stuff, and now we can actually interact with our Unchained instance. So the two basic methods that I just enumerated, set and get, are the ones that are displayed on this screen. So we see we can set our variable to unsigned integer of 255, and then we can call get on that smart contract. So let's go ahead and invoke the smart contract, and this is going to return us the standard Ethereum transaction receipt. So we see represented hexadecimal, nonce, gas price, gas, etc. And then we see the ensuing digital signature of that transaction. So if we go back to our environment, we would expect to see a second block mined due to the invocation of that transaction. And we do here, right? So we have the deployment and we have the invocation. And then the last thing we can do from the Unchained side is we can call a get on that smart contract address, asking for the current representation or state of our global variable. And we expect to see back 255 here, and we do. So very, very basic. The big takeaway here is a lot of the abstraction that Unchained does, right? Taking the complexity out of Ethereum transaction submission, allowing you to use this piece of middleware or this connector to really quickly integrate with your existing applications and your existing processes. So please refer to the Kaleido marketplace and the actual service definition within an environment for further details on using the Unchained service. Thanks for watching and enjoy Kaleido.